Hello.
Well, hello. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Excellent.
I always love that. I love that.
Mm.
I'm glad you're excellent. I am excellent too. Got my exercise in this morning. Ran back and forth to Ralph's like 3 times. I kept forgetting stuff. Anyway, good morning, Facebook user, and welcome to the women who are going to be coming up. Dr. Rosensweet, we're going to do a little bit of a revisit. Thank you so much for doing this for us. I'm going to start out really quickly just by stating that in regards to the 24-hour urine, I've been getting a lot of questions from women, and I wrote this to you. Women are wanting to know how it is that they can get the 24-hour urine test through their physicians who don't usually do this. And you wrote me back that you are happy to speak directly to the physician. And soon, a link is going to be put up for all of us who are interested, or all of you who are interested. And you'll be able to take a look. And I think there's going to be a YouTube video, if I'm not mistaken, in regards to that. Am I correct?
That's definitely my plan, is to talk about testing and talk about the 24-hour urine hormone testing. And, it's a touchy area because I am disinclined to talk adversely about anyone else's business.
Yes, of course.
So I'm not going to name names, and I'm going to ask that anyone who's interested in what we're producing here is that you try and sense in your guts if you trust this source and trust me and what I'm saying. And if you do, let's just go towards the positive.
Okay.
And but what you've heard me say over and over again is, at this time in history, I have a very strong opinion that the way to assess a woman who's in menopause and taking hormones, and to get some beautiful information, and also to be able to define what's too much and what's too little, is via the 24-hour urine hormone test. And
right.
I do not, after careful examination of all the other methods that are being offered out there, accept any of them as valid for that. Not valid, I'm saying. Now, it doesn't mean that blood testing, for example, isn't fabulous for hundreds of things. Oh God, thousands of things. I love it. I do a lot of blood testing, but not for hormones. And as far as the rest of the methods go, you're meeting up with a very strong opinion that for testing women who are in menopause and are on hormones, the way to do it is 24-hour urine, and the other ways are not valid. Oh, I am saying that.
Well, you're entitled.
I'm entitled to an opinion.
Absolutely, and good, strong one. You've been doing this for a couple of years now, 2, I think, 3.
25, 50 years
Yes,
a doctor,
sir.
25 years in specializing in menopause.
And to me, that stands to.
And then, yes, like you mentioned when you and I corresponded yesterday about this, is my plan is to post a YouTube video, lots of action, available possibilities. So I can't guarantee when it's going up. And Carolyn, you hold my feet to the fire. And
I will.
Yeah, thank you.
Just don't yell at me when I do.
I never yelled at you.
No, I'm teasing, of course. Never.
And also, thus, we'll have it available on Ins and Outs of Menopause, your Facebook page. And then, if a woman patient has a provider, that means a physician or a nurse practitioner or a prescribing company, pharmacist, and they want to know more about it, I'm happy to talk to them personally. I'm unfortunate I don't have the space, or it's not really proper to talk to any individual woman patient. I'm only licensed in Florida, and there are ways that I can see if you're in Florida. Or you can come into a program, and we're now able to treat women in many states. But I will talk to any doctor, nurse practitioner, or prescribing compounding pharmacist, or PA who's prescribing. So I'll talk directly to them, and perhaps they could contact us through the Facebook page, and then you'll contact me, and I'll talk to them directly about
I think that's wonderful. It's amazing. And yes, these are the women that are writing that their doctors do seem very happy to learn. And so that's a good thing, you know, because a doctor hopefully will want to help his patient or her patient. And we're just going to make it good for everybody, right?
That would be just delightful and a wonderful way to proceed. Absolutely. Good for everybody.
Thoughts are things. So weirder things have happened as I've noticed my 63 years on the planet. Okie dokie. So here we go. We're going to revisit, please, the stopping of hormones. I'm getting a lot of private messages from worried women in regards to stopping our hormones once per month. One of the women says, you know, I'm wondering the why we stop. Another woman is saying, is it dangerous if we've not stopped them ever? I've been taking them 11 years. And another woman is saying, I don't have any menopausal symptoms, again, for 11 years, and it never even occurred to me to stop. Why do we stop?
And I want to pause on that word worry. And I'd like to say that if you're on hormones, there's not a lot of reason to worry. I think someone should worry if they're not on hormones.
Yes.
That would include men and women. But if you're on hormones and you're not having symptoms of excessive hormones, you already have marched into something so beneficial for yourself that I would remove the word worry. Now, and that's any hormones, pretty much. Now, you can overdose on hormones, and even with overdose, it's unlikely that you're going to get into trouble, but who wants it? But we certainly don't want overdose. We certainly don't want inappropriate tissue. No way. But cut down your dose. So what I'm addressing is, don't worry, be happy. Or when I grew up, the mantra was, what me worry? Carolyn, you probably recognize that, where that's from.
I wasn't able to swallow my coffee. Yes, I recognize that one.
We won't mention it was from Mad Magazine.
Right. Which has come out again, by the way. Everybody should go buy a copy.
So worry. Now, how about stopping once a month? If there's anything, let's replace the worry with, well, maybe you want to do better and better and better in the world of hormones. Because if you're on hormones, you're doing good. And if you're not on an overdose, you're doing real good. And overdoses are real easy to identify pretty much all the time. And I'm repeating myself, yes, but I want to try and help you not worry.
Right.
If your rigor and your interest and your desire to get it fantastic, and then even better than that, in fact, you want to get your program up all the way to as optimal, as safe, as efficacious, and good to go for your whole life with annual rechecks or tweaking, then here's your job. Connect with a healthcare provider that is specializing and is excellent in treating women in menopause with compounded bioidenticals. Come into our menopause method. That we can really certify with great confidence that if you're dealing with someone that we're training and mentoring, reviewing every single case with them, every single patient with them. That's your job. So it's not a matter of worry, but it's a matter if you want to upgrade, and really get it great, because there's a wide variation from, okay, I'm on hormones, the permanent Prem Pro. All right, I stepped into the world of hormones. Or at the other end of the spectrum, I'm on compounded bioidentical hormones, and for sure my androgens are being covered, like testosterone and DHA as well. And I'm at a high level of excellence, and we're checking my levels and with 24-hour urine hormone tests. There's that broad spectrum of excellence in this. And so move towards the excellence. Whoops, wrong way. Move towards the excellence. Yeah, keep on going. And of course, download the book that you offer for no charge on happy, healthy hormones, because in it, I assert that we're describing what excellence really is. And take your time. Step 1, get on hormones. Step 2, move towards excellence. And ultimately, for excellence, it's you want to find someone who really knows what they're doing.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
And using 24-hour urine hormone testing, that's sort of a mark and measure, by the way, because if they've gone that far and they've had to climb that mountain, because it's a big learning curve when you're doing this 24-hour urine hormone test. A lot to learn, but the reports are so rich and they're so inclusive that it takes a while. So
right.
The original question was stoppage. So let me zero in on stoppage once a month.
Yeah. Okay.
Here's why if you haven't stopped once for 11 years, I think you mentioned someone was saying that. No big deal. So what? What would be the worst thing that would happen? You'd be taking in excessive hormones and you'd have no way to identify it. But most women who take in excessive hormones, excessive estrogen, excessive testosterone, they get symptoms, excessive progesterone. So you're disinclined to be on excessive dosage. Now, some women don't get those symptoms, but of the dosages offered, it's unlikely that you're going to be on an excessive dose. But if you've got breast tenderness, you're getting overstimulation of breast glandular tissue, you want to reduce the dose. Now, let me tell you about stoppage. It's sort of this protection against accumulation of excessive hormones over time. That's what it's about. It's not about receptor sites.
That was
not about receptor sites. Receptor sites can be an issue, but that's another discussion to have, and I'm of course happy to do that. No, it's about not accumulating hormones over time. So I'm going to try and give you another example. Carrot juice has been very popular, especially 30 years ago, 20 years ago. It was one of the original health food suggestions.
The vitamin A.
The vitamin A. And we did have to be careful with carrot juice because vitamin A is fat soluble. That's different than vitamin B. You could take a ton of vitamin B, not a ton. I wouldn't recommend taking a ton. But you could take a lot of vitamin B, and if you had too much, what would happen is you would just pee out the extra because it's water soluble. It's not going to do you any harm.
Right.
But these fat soluble vitamins, vitamin A is one of them, they accumulate in the body fat. And if you're taking too high a dose of vitamin A, eventually you're going to build up too much of it in your body fat. Well, vitamin A will scream at you too. You take too much vitamin A, and just think about it. Vitamin A is very prevalent in carrots. So if you take too much carrot juice, the vitamin A is going to accumulate in your fat tissue and you're going to turn yellow. So back in the day, there was a lot of people who really loved carrot juice. And if you looked at the palms of their hands, they were turning yellow. What is that? Too much. Well, hormones, steroid hormones, ovarian hormones, adrenal hormones, these are fat soluble. Well, you could take too much hormones and they could build up in your fat tissue. So one way we prevent that is we do a ritual. Once a woman has oscillated into her optimal dose, we then have her stop once a month. I usually suggest stop on the first day of a calendar month. Other women like to tie it into the moon. Fun. If you're tuned into the moon, that's a fun way to do it. You stop at the end of the full moon or at a brand new moon. And then the question is, how long do you stop? You stop for 1 day, no hormones, 2 days, no hormones, 3 days, no hormones. You stop until you develop your first symptom of hormonal insufficiency. So this works really well if a woman went into menopause and she had hot flashes and she was put on hormones and her hot flashes disappeared. In fact, the ideal thing, and this is the way we do it, we confirm ultimately that the dosages that she's on are in the optimal range via 24-hour urine hormone testing. And then let's say that this woman who's at symptom relief and she's a happy camper, that we then ask her to stop the hormones and see what happens. And let's say she stopped all her ovarian hormones, and on day 1 she feels fine. Day 1 of stoppage. And on day 2 of stoppage, she feels okay. And she wakes up on day 3 and she has a hot flash. What did we learn? That there was a strategic reserve of hormones called her fat tissue in her body, and it had enough reserve to carry her through 2 days, but it didn't have extra reserve. And by the 3rd day, her general body levels dropped too low. And we learned that she had about 2 days of reserve. And then what we suggest that this woman does from that point on is that she stops, not 3 days, but she stops 2 days. 1 day less than it took to develop hormones every month from that point on. And what does that do? That if it turned out there was a couple extra molecules of hormones that were building up in her fat tissue, that stoppage will help address possible accumulation of hormones over time. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. Let's say, but it's one of the things that we like to implement. It's not perfect, but it prevents hormone accumulation over time. Stoppage. Now, we don't need you to stop until you get a symptom every month. By the time you get a symptom, that's why we say don't stop for 3 days. If I'm right. You got a symptom, because that symptom means you dip below adequate, and it just puts you through hot flashes and stuff that you don't need to do. That's why we don't have you stop for the full 3 days. We don't need to get symptomatic. We're just doing a crude and rough thing to prevent hormone accumulation over time. Now, I want to give you a couple examples. Let's say that you were a woman who did go into menopause and you did have symptoms of insufficiency, like hot flashes, and you stopped, and 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 days, a week, no symptoms, 2 weeks, no symptoms. Oh, what does that tell us? You probably were building up. Your dosages were probably too high. Or let's look at another possibility. You stopped your hormones in the morning, and by the afternoon, you had a hot flash. What does that tell us? Wow, you were on the low end of hormone dosage, and you probably want to increase your dose a little bit.
Right.
We'll confirm it by 24-hour urine hormone test. But if you developed a symptom the first day, come on, you must have been riding the low end, or you're very thin, so you didn't have much adipose tissue to accumulate anything. All right, so I'm giving you a few examples, but this isn't crucial. It's not critical. We just want to take measures to not accumulate hormones over the long haul. And of course, in the menopause method, when a woman is oscillated into symptom relief, we're confirming that she's in the optimal zone by 24-hour urine hormone testing. So there's different ways to approach many different aspects of treating women in menopause. And we got a lot of tools, and that's the good news. We're not just relying on one tool like once a month stoppage. We're also leaning heavily into the 24-hour urine hormone test, actually the gold standard for me. So all these things, almost anything that you can name in menopause, when you're dealing with someone who really knows what they're doing, there's different ways to assess We don't rely on one thing. And the final thing I want to say about this is it's a little trickier for women who never have symptoms. There's 25% of women enter menopause, they don't have symptoms.
And you've said those are the ones you worry about, right?
Exactly. I don't
Yeah.
worry about very much.
Well, right. We should get that word worry out. You're concerned, maybe.
I mean, of course, I have waves of fear and sadness and anger and shame and guilt move through me these days,
That
but
human thing?
not very much because of my devout attention for 40 years of my life to addressing those uncomfortable emotions.
Right.
But not to sidetrack us here, you are correct, and I don't want to mince words or parse things out too much. The women of this planet that I have concern for as a medical doctor are the 25% of women who go into menopause and they don't have symptoms. And many of them are looking around at the women who are highly symptomatic and they're going, hey, my menopause is easy and I'm already through menopause. Wrong. That's absolutely wrong. Over time, one thing for sure, if you're not having a period, your ovarian hormones are tanked. They are running very low. And the consequences of low estrogen, low progesterone, low testosterone. Remember, testosterone is a human hormone. It's not a male hormone. It's a human hormone.
Yeah.
They are so consequential. And just to jump, when you're in your 80s, you're going to want to be able to walk without a cane, preferably, let alone you're certainly going to want to walk without a walker. You're certainly going to want to have full bladder control. You may want to you may also treasure your cognitive ability, your arteries, your bones, your muscles, and decline. When your hormones go real low, here's what happens. You wind up losing your muscles. Every gerontologist knows this. Those are doctors who specialize in helping elderly folks. You're going to lose your muscles. You're going to lose your bladder control. 95% of women, you're going to wind up with a cane walker, wheelchair. There's going to be a place where you're going to transition into assisted living and nursing homes. So I was talking to a doctor, as I've mentioned on this in our discussions before. We wondered what percent of women would not have to go into a nursing home and assisted living if they just went on hormones, not have to lose their cognition. It'd just be astronomical and have an astronomically beneficial effect on American healthcare, which is so top heavy for end of life stuff, for the elderly stuff.
You know, as you've said so many times, our lives will matter to us when we are 70, 80, 90, 100, as much as they matter to us right in this very minute.
That's so. I'm so glad that that's resonated and landed with you so deeply, Carolyn.
Oh my God, it has.
It does matter. It does matter, and you can do what my ideal thing is. When you're 90, you're 95, and you're down on the floor playing with your great grandchildren, and you're living at home, and you're not wearing adult diapers, and this is what you're going to want to be doing, and you're thinking clearly. You just really want that. Having worked with women in their 80s and 90s, I can tell you, it really matters. And one of the strongest things that you can do by far, among all the things that are available to you, is get these hormones replenished properly. So I'm beating that drum again.
Yes, you are. And you know, it's fine. It's back to the repetition breeds retention. And I appreciate that so much about you. I do get these questions and I see all the questions coming up. And you know, I certainly am happy to try and answer them. There's one thing that I really want to get into as well, but really looking here, there is a question that just came up. It says, why do 25% of the women not experience symptoms when their hormones decline? Is it because they have more reserves and the decline is more gradual? I like that question.
Me too, Carolyn. Thanks for pulling that one up. And I can't answer that entirely. One of the reasons, there's probably multiple reasons. One of the reasons is the ovaries in every woman. If you're not having a period, they're done. They're not producing hormones.
Yes.
And your estrogen levels, your progesterone levels, your testosterone levels are super low. Now, here's an interesting exception. Women who are overweight, who have a lot of adipose tissue, their bodies are able to take adrenal testosterone and adrenal androgens and convert them to estrogen. And I think that's one of the reasons that overweight women, not all overweight women, but women with a lot of adipose tissue, don't necessarily have the raucous symptoms that thin women do. And I think that's one of the reasons. And then here we go, individual variation. It's just so astronomical. We don't have to explain why 25% of the women don't experience symptoms. But I can tell you, all the women who are not having a period have super low hormone levels. There's a lot of women who go into menopause, they start getting hot flashes, they start getting night sweats, they start having sleep disturbance, mood disturbance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it never stops. They go into their 60s, 70s, 80s. They're still having this stuff going on. That's one possibility. There's a whole other group of women that they go into menopause. They got some really disruptive symptoms. And those symptoms stop at a certain point. And they say to themselves, I'm through menopause.
Right.
And I don't have to do anything. And I'd like to say, as I've said before, wrong. This is really, I understand why you'd think you were through menopause, but your hormones are low. They were low when you went into menopause and you got symptomatic and you stopped having symptoms and they're still super low. And the consequences of low estrogen, low progesterone, low testosterone, as I've said many, many times, they're very consequential. So you want to replenish those. So don't be lulled into, quote, I'm through menopause. Don't be lulled into that. You want to feel good when you're 95. You want to be walking and talking and thinking and able to get off the floor and stand up and take a walk. And as a gerontologist taught me as a senior medical student lecturing to us, and I've said this before, but here we go, repeating again. I'm sitting there in a noon lecture as a senior medical student, and this gerontologist, a specialist in treating the elderly, gets up in front of us and says, because I can picture it just like I could picture you, Carolyn, right now. He said, it shocked me. He said, you're senior medical students. You know 1,000 diagnoses. Let me tell you what's really happening to the elderly. They're losing their muscle in something called sarcopenia, and they're losing their bones in something called osteopenia and osteoporosis, and they can't walk or stand with stability, and they fall. And they fall onto their osteoporotic hips, and in those days, that was pretty lethal. Surgery has advanced so much that in these days, they can replace a hip and send someone home.
Right. It sounds like outpatient surgery.
But what his point was, and this is what he said, you want to do something for the elderly? Help protect their muscles and protect their bones. And what protects your muscles and what protects your bones? Hormones.
Yeah.
Androgens, estrogens.
Yeah.
Not to mention protecting your arteries, protecting your brain, your cognition. So I'll stop beating the drum for today, Carolyn. I'll give you a break. Sorry. Although
no,
I know you just eat this stuff up.
It's why I never really understood the word post. It never
happened for you.
No, it didn't.
There was no post.
Yeah, no, and I don't know that I even believe in it to this day. So anyway, it's 7:30, and I want to get into this next subject because it's an important one. It's something I learned about. I had no idea. We have discussed it, but not really at huge length. And it is the land of xenoestrogens. Now, quite a few women are asking how these little mimickers, these estrogen mimickers, are making their way into the receptor. They look like estrogen. They make their way into the receptor, but they don't show up on tests. So how do we know if we have these mimickers? And how do we do a so-called like hormone clearance to get rid of them? Are they dangerous to us? Can we live with them? Should we live with them? It's a whole world.
Okay. Love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But let's shift our attention away from women in menopause and let's talk about alligators.
Okay. I happen to have one right here. Interesting.
Because you think this is obscure, but it's not.
Got it.
It was noticed that Florida alligators, they weren't reproducing at a rate that they used to.
Right.
And this was investigated, and it related to the male sperm count dropping so dramatically. And the reason that the male sperm count dropped so radically was because the alligators were getting slowly poisoned by xenoestrogens. Xenoestrogens, I think it's an interesting term. Here's what it is. You hear about toxicity and you hear about pollution and you think it's this topic that, well, it certainly wouldn't affect me. And it's just any naturopathic doctor, chiropractic doctor, nutritionist, anyone hold functional medicine, any health coach, the whole thousands and thousands of them that have really started asking the question, why are people not doing well?
Yeah.
Why is there so much illness? Why is there so many different illnesses? You wind up getting into the field of nutrition, stress, exercise, and toxicity. And what do you learn? You learn that there is so much toxic stuff out there on this planet. And really, we talked about alligators. It's really primarily from the dinosaurs. So we're still getting impact from the dinosaurs, even though I walk almost every day outside and I haven't seen a dinosaur yet, but we're still being affected by them.
You haven't come to my place yet. We got lots of them.
Oh, you do?
Relics.
And I'm just being facetious, of course.
Of course.
But a lot of the oil that belongs in the earth, but has been brought up from the deep in the earth, has given us a lot of trouble. And it's the source of all kinds of stuff that are toxic. It's not the only source, but it is a major source. And, it's a carbon source, so it's been converted into fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, because when you start messing with natural agriculture, you got to take drastic measures. So old-time farmers, they used to have a lot of different things planted in their gardens. And now agribusiness, they don't do that. They plant these vast fields of corn. Well, that's not healthy for the soil. In fact, you'd start breeding non-healthy corn. So you have to fertilize that corn. Well, that was done after World War II when they had all these surplus nitrates that were used for ammunition. So someone had the dangerous idea, let's dump the nitrogen onto the soil and make the plants grow faster, which they did. Those plants grew faster, but you need a lot of other nutrients besides nitrogen to make a plant healthy. So you start developing these unhealthy plants that became far more susceptible to insects and weeds. So what do you do then? What happened then? Well, let's just produce something to kill the insects and the weeds. Thus cometh the herbicides and the pesticides. Well, how much does How much toxicity, how much poison does it take to knock off insects? These are pretty hardy creatures. You just don't get to sprinkle fairy dust on them and they disappear. You
No,
gotta
that's from the dinosaur days, actually, if you think about it.
you
They've
gotta
survived
use some
everything.
heavy duty chemicals to get rid
Yeah.
of. And our food supply is just loaded with these chemicals. They just don't spray them on the fields and then they disappear. Herbicides and pesticides. No, they get sucked up into the plants. And so the plants, the air, the water is just loaded with these toxic chemicals. And of all the things in the world that these toxic chemicals could do, one of the things they do is once they get into the human body, is they start occupying hormone receptor sites. Huh. Why don't they just occupy nasal snot and get sneezed out and disappear? Well,
that's a good question. Why
don't they just? Well, they don't. They get distributed all over our body. They cause problems all over our body, but they're very different than arsenic, for example. Back in the day, the word was is if you put some arsenic in someone's drink, they would die. Well, herbicides and pesticides, they don't work like that. They're sort of silent. They come in and you don't feel them. And then you accumulate them and then you start feeling the effects of them, but it's obscure, it's mysterious. It's poisoned by molecule after molecule after molecule. It's not like 1 teaspoon and you keel over. And so what do they do? Of all the things on the planet that they could do, they occupy estrogen receptor sites. They occupy the estrogen receptor sites of the Florida alligators, and they change the sperm counts. They occupy the receptor sites of human males. When I was in medical school, the sperm count, the reference range for sperm counts in males was 5 times what it is today. How'd that happen? How did human males get into so much trouble? Why did Viagra and like medicines get so popular and so many men lost their erection and are taking these, one of the most popular drugs of all history? And, you know, there's a complexity to it, and that's why the story's long. But women, these herbicides and pesticides, they can occupy your estrogen receptor sites. So I'm getting down to business now. Does it matter? Yeah, it matters. Anyone who's interested in their health, you want to eat organic. That's how you address this. And you want to detoxify. So any health coach, any nutritionist, any naturopathic doctors tend to be extremely knowledgeable in this. And of course, functional medicine doctors and nurse practitioners, they're on to this one big time. And health coaches, they know that we want to help our patients. We got to clean up their nutrition and we got to detoxify them. We got to get rid of this stuff. And you can.
Does that include the hormone clearance?
Well, let's talk about hormone clearance. I don't know what that means.
But I'm not 100% either.
Well, I'm going to tell you what you're really trying to do. You're trying to get toxic chemicals out of your body.
Okay.
And the very first thing you do with toxicity is you stop putting it into your body. So you go through your house and you get rid of chemicals right and left. Anything, hairsprays, stuff you're using to clean your bathroom with. Well, let me simplify it. Get rid of everything except some clear vinegar and some baking soda. And you can use the baking soda for pot scrubbing. And you can use the clear vinegar to clear up everything. And, you know, there's experts in this and you can get so much information. But just to simplify it, just think of the money you'd save.
And that too, yeah.
Crazy products we've gotten. We think we can't live without them. And all these fragrances and these air purifiers that put out these fragrances and all of it. And you go to dry cleaners who are using eco-friendly methods. Ecologically friendly methods. It just simplifies your life enormously. And then, how do you know if you're a woman and you're having receptor site issues? Well, I want to refer you to Dr. Lindsay Berkson and her website. And Carolyn, maybe you can post a link to her books, because she has been exploring this issue and has detoxification suggestions. Now, thousands of health coaches, naturopaths, chiropractors, who are nutritionists, functional medicine folks, have their favorite detoxification protocols. And I'm going to give you one of them here. I'm going to give you a couple of suggestions. But yeah, the technicalities of detoxification, right down to the esoteric and important tools you can use to detoxify. But here's what I recommend. Here's the people who I think should detoxify. If you're a human being, you should detoxify. And some people, it's far more important than others. And if women are go into menopause and they start getting treated with hormones, and it's tricky, they're not having an easy time. Yeah. Things are not making sense.
Right.
They're having paradoxical responses. They're taking a hormone that's supposed to calm them down, like progesterone, and instead of it's animating them. Or they're not getting rid of the hot flashes. Oh, clue, something's going on. The very first place I look is, do you have an elevated sex hormone binding globulin? Or do you have xenoestrogens? And there isn't an issue for human beings that we can't heal. Healing is possible. And it is rather awesome for anyone who's gotten into wanting to protect our health, build our health. It's rather awesome. What a project.
It's fascinating.
It's quite a project. And you take them on at a decent pace so you don't get stressed by your process. But bottom line of detoxifying, I mean, I had the privilege of knowing Russell Jaffe, a pathologist who was one of the early technical writers about how do you get these xenoestrogens out of your body? How do you get these petrochemicals out of your body? Well, his suggestion was you take a radiant heater, one of those portable things, and you stick it in a closet or a bathroom, and you heat it up to 102 and 100 or 104, something like that. So it's warm in there, and you sweat.
So you make your own sauna.
Well, this is a low temperature thing.
Yeah.
104 is not a high temperature thing.
Right.
And you do that every day, and you're going to sweat this stuff out, especially because these are volatile. Petrochemicals are volatile, and that means you can get them out of your body. And then there's such things as coffee enemas, there's liver purification, there's liver cleanses. These things all matter. So you enter into the world of how do I detoxify? Number one, you get rid of your exposures. You clean up your house and your cars and everything else. And then you start measures. You eat organic food, go on some cleansing diets, you go on some heat, you can even get a portable infrared sauna for $350. I have one. It's upstairs in my bedroom. And you can get fancier than that, but you can, for those of you who really have to do it, sweating in an infrared sauna is a good way to do it.
So let me ask you two questions. A question came in about what about like us women coloring our hair, or how about putting perfume on your skin? Yeah. Okay.
And talk to anyone who's environmentally sensitive.
Yeah.
There are canaries in the coal mine. If they walk into a room and there's perfume in that room, they have to turn around. They don't have the capacity to handle these things.
That would be Daryl. I mean, he could work for Scotland Yard. I'm not kidding. Yeah. With that nose of his. Really.
Don't use these things. Yeah. Now, look out, folks. Here comes the Dr. Rosensweet suggestion. I say that there are no better smells than our natural smells. And just as a matter of opinion, look out, folks. If I smell the healthy armpit of a healthy person, I say there's no better odor. But we've gotten used to these crazy odors that trying to mask these odors. So just let your armpits go. Forgo the. I know many people are going to we'll get some pushback on this particular suggestion.
You
But
know,
yeah,
though, I mean, my
perfumes,
girl
hair
has been saying
coloring,
that forever.
hair
Dear
hair
Lord, say
coloring,
that
hair coloring. Sorry to say, and then I'm a 78-year-old man. What do I like? Just as an opinion, I like the women who are not coloring their hair. They're going on natural. I learned this as a 20-year-old hitchhiking around Europe. I started noticing a difference between European women and American women. And there was some elderly European women that were absolutely gorgeous in their 80s and 90s. I spoke to a 80-year-old woman last night, a friend of mine. She's absolutely gorgeous in ways that as a 78-year-old, young women can be gorgeous too. In fact, we can all be all over the place. If we're happy and we're ourselves, we look beautiful. If we're not, we don't look so cool.
No.
But anyway,
No.
it's all about, we don't want to be putting these chemicals on our body and are in our hair. Get them down as close to zero as you can.
Right, like right on the scalp, right in the root area. You know.
Anything that you put on your body is going to absorb into your body.
Well, because the skin is a big mouth, right?
Well, it's a surface that things get absorbed into.
Yes.
How do we recommend applying hormones, estrogens and testosterone topically? In fact, with our organic oils, you apply a couple drops on your forearm and you rub it in, and within seconds, that organic oil has just absorbed right into your skin and is dry. It was once oil, and then you rub it in, and then it's dry. How'd that happen? Because it absorbed into the skin beautifully. It's like a sponge. So what a wonderful question, and it really takes us into the world of detoxification.
It does. It's an amazing, xenoestrogens is an amazing, amazing subject, I think, that warrants, just many, 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 many months of, teaching. To me, it's fabulous. And beyond interesting, and I really appreciate your answer to that. And I know that we have 1,000 more things that we could discuss, time permitting, in regards to xenoestrogens. Do they compete with our natural hormones?
Yes, they do. And that's what makes women who have too much toxicity, too many xenoestrogens, it's a piece of work. You've got to detoxify so that the natural hormones. And there was a question earlier, Carolyn, that you mentioned. How come we can't measure them? Well, we can. They're not going to show up on hormone tests. That's
right.
Sure. You won't see them. But there's very sophisticated labs that are able to measure toxic chemicals, and they're costly profiles that insurance is not necessarily going to pay for. And yes, I like to do those kind of testing, especially when people are really ill, but you don't have to do that kind of testing. If you're having tricky menopause and you're not feeling well, detoxification is something you need to do. So do it. That's all. You don't have to do it overnight. Take it on as a year or 5-year project. You don't have to push yourself and stress yourself. You just take care of it over time.
Right.
There's a question here, Carolyn, that's shown up, and I want to address that question. It's that one about, please speak about the shock of surgical menopause.
Oh, did I see that one?
A woman in their early 30s. Let's just start exactly where you are, Twinkle Mom, because that's your name. That's what I saw.
It is Twinkle Mom. And I am also a surgical menopause survivor, by the way. So. And
here's something I want to tell you. The remedies that we use for women in menopause work great for surgical menopause. And as a doctor, a woman could come to me with symptoms, and I can't tell whether she had surgical menopause or regular menopause. Why I want to tell you that is for whatever reason you have no ovaries, you can be replenished as beautifully, as terrifically, as amazingly, as easily, or maybe it takes a little time because sometimes to get your individual balance, it's a little longer. As a woman who goes into natural menopause, I can't even tell the difference. So just get thee to an expert and start taking these hormones, and you'll do really well. Not only that,
Yeah.
when you have surgical menopause, the ideal time is walk into that hospital with your bottles. They take out your ovaries. You start them in the hospital. You start the hormones in the hospital, and it's a good time to start because your body is used to having hormones in it, so your receptor sites are alive and well. So if a woman who's about to have surgical menopause or a woman who's just had surgical menopause gets into it, it's a pretty easy transition because your body is used to it. The receptor sites are used to it. So download our book that Carolyn's posted.
Oh my God, you'll love that book. I got to tell you. And
Twinkle Mom, read that book and find the someone who's an expert, and you'll be fine.
Absolutely. In my case, I did go through surgical menopause. They didn't tell me, and I didn't get hormone. That was a nightmare. So yeah, absolutely, get on hormones right away. Find the right doctor. Talk with that doctor. Yeah, get on hormones because it doesn't feel good without them. For sure. I walked in the hospital, one woman, and I have no idea who I walked out as. Daryl was like, "Who is this?" I was like, "I don't know, but I don't like her." And she hung around for a while till I met you. So yeah, Twinkle Mom, you can be just fine. Nail polish, yes, is one thing.
It's nail polish. I would like to eliminate by edict all nail polish. I'm sure I'm going to get some pushback for that. But I'm a man, and I can tell you natural nails are gorgeous. And why eliminate nail polish? Because toxicity is an issue. If it wasn't an issue, okay, occasional nail polish. But this stuff is strong chemicals. How do you know that? Well, try removing the nail polish. Why don't you remove the nail polish with soap and water? Because it won't remove because it's glue. So you got to use nail polish remover, which is also toxic. So if you're having health issues and you care about your health, you could let go of nail polish. Natural nails are gorgeous. Now, this is just an opinion, and I know I've taken a lot of heat from a lot of people who criticize me for my weird opinions. But
well, I'm fortunately married to someone who has those same weird opinions. Really, Yep.
Yeah, the natural woman. How are you going to do better than the natural woman? Tell me. You're gonna improve upon the natural woman? Come on now. No, not possible. But the main thing is nail polish is highly toxic stuff. Take a whiff of it. Try and remove it. So it matters. So
or even the nail polish remover that's removing the nail polish. That's pretty strong stuff too. You can smell that from a mile away.
Where should we go now? Because, oh my God, can you believe it?
No.
Does fly.
Hour goes by so fast.
Time left. Where's the next place we should go, Carolyn?
The next place that we should go, you're going to see because my cursor doesn't work. What I'm going to ask you is to please send me these questions, screenshot them and send them. It says, is iodine good for a cyst? That just came up. I have no idea.
Well, for a cyst, well, let's talk about fibrocystic breast disease, where the breasts have gotten denser and less healthy. There's reasons why that happens, and iodine can almost be magical. Not in every woman, but taking the proper dose of iodine can reduce breast pain in women who have fibrocystic breast disease and increased breast density. So it's a very, very important tool. There's other tools like these compression bras, not okay. These underwire bras, not okay. We describe it in the book, the details of it. bra cultures on the planet where the women do not wear bras have much less incidence of breast trouble and breast disease. And it makes perfect sense because you're trapping lymphatic fluid that can't drain when you're putting pressure on the breast, when you're using underwire bras. And yeah, so there's more to it, but iodine can be one of the remedies, and you got to be careful with iodine.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, I grew up in a day when there was something called hyperthyroidism or Graves' disease, and you have these people who thyroid glands have gone ballistic and are producing way too much thyroid hormone, and it's really a problem. And some of the remedies back in those days was surgical removal of all or part of that thyroid gland. And sounds pretty drastic, but you need to do it. And in many cases, but surgeons, they don't want to operate on a hyperthyroid patient on that gland right away. They want that gland to calm down, because glands that are overproducing have way too much blood circulation, so that it gets messy. So they spend some time trying to calm that hyperactive thyroid gland down. And what do they use? Substantial doses of iodine. It will suppress a thyroid gland. So you got to take the right dosages. And so I recommend that you be doing this under the care of an expert, because you can get over-the-counter iodine preparations that are too excessive, and it's going to suppress your thyroid gland. So you just want to hit it right. And you can hit it right by monitoring symptoms and by doing proper blood tests for thyroid. They include TSH, free T3, free T4, and reverse T3. And you got to keep your eye on it. So yes, iodine, but you got to be careful. If you're going to go over 6.25 milligrams for any length of time, or even that amount, you got to monitor that thyroid. So I love iodine. In fact, in the book, we describe how iodine really helped one of our women who had breast tenderness and increased breast density, still a patient to this day. And she had a thermogram that showed excessive heat. Gradually over time, she did various things, including iodine, and the increased breast density and the positive thermogram changed to normal.
Interesting.
Iodine was one of the tools. So yes, iodine, but caution, you can suppress the thyroid gland if you're doing too much iodine.
Right. So you don't want to just go eat a teaspoon of salt.
Well, that's not going to be enough iodine, but there's supplemental iodine is widely available to the public. And the dosages, I mean, there's 50 milligrams. What did I say? 6.25, you want to be cautious.
Right.
60 milligram, 25 milligram, 50 milligram, 25 milligrams readily available online. You can get it. It's a decent product, but you've got to know how to use it. And I think they should never offer something of that high dose to the general public. But anyway.
Right. Moral of story is,
oh my God.
Get to a good doctor. You're going to have a hard stop. I'm sure of it. I just feel it.
Yeah, it's coming.
Please screenshot these to me. I apologize that I just don't have a cursor. I'm going to write a lot of these questions down. They're great questions, and I really appreciate all of you amazing women that have come up. There may be a man or two in here. I don't know. Nobody's saying so. And Dr. Rosensweet, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's always a pleasure and fun to hang out for these two different times every week. And to all the women who come to join us, for all the women that I say hello, and it's such an honor to be able to do this with all of you, and best wishes to you all.
Yeah, it really is an honor. And so, my famous little namaste, and have a really fabulous, safe, happy, healthy, functional medicine weekend. Clean out that kitchen. Yeah. And I'll get to the questions, and we'll see you all on Tuesday.
All righty. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.